Hello?
Hey.
How did you get such a cool name? Bill Burr. I should be interviewing you. How do you say it? Karuga?
Yeah.
Karuga Koinange.
Koinange is the pronunciation. I was actually born
Koinange.
I was born in Kenya, in Nairobi.
Now, can you speak more than one language?
I do speak a little bit of Swahili, but I'm still kind of trying to relearn my language, because I did grow up, actually, in the States.
You gotta be crushing it with the ladies. You got the cool name, you're multilingual. There you go.
I have a girlfriend, actually, so yeah, I guess.
Look at that. There you go.
So, yeah, I just wanted to talk about the show. I really appreciate you guys reaching out. So, first of all, I really enjoy the show. I've been watching it a lot recently. Very funny, and I think it's really unique too. So one thing I would want to know, in the first 2 seasons, obviously we saw a lot of progression take place with the Murphys. You know, Frank had his kind of saga with Dumbarton Mohican, and then Sue's in the workforce. What can you reveal sort of about the direction of season 3?
Well, oh my God. I don't want to get in trouble with Netflix.
Yeah, without getting sued.
Because I'm not even allowed to say like when it's coming out. Jimmy told me. So I would tell you this. It's definitely our strongest season. Like this is like it's definitely this season is kind of like the Murphys. I guess Frank and Sue get consumed by matters outside of their family, which ends up affecting the family in an adverse way.
Okay. So I think it's sort of interesting that each of the writers basically gets to pitch stories about their fathers and families when you guys are coming up with the script. Can you just kind of take me inside the atmosphere of the meetings with the writers when you guys are coming up with ideas? Like, are you guys just kind of spitballing things? How does that work?
Well, I think when we first started and we were trying to come up with like who everybody was, that's when everyone was telling like their dad stories or their little sister or the bully down the street or the cool guy, next door or something. That's when that was. But now what it is we're picking up, through those stories you get your characters, and with the characters you then put them in situations where stuff can happen, and that's how you end up getting your stories. So now that we have the stories, it's like, where do we take this? Where does it go next?
Just continuity.
And so it's more like right now you're just trying to come up with an overall seasonal arc and then episodes. And when you do that, it'll be like, they go away for a family vacation, and then you just thinking about family. Oh man, we took a family vacation and this happened. So you just sort of throw it out there, and then 10 other 10 people jump on the story and, add to the drama and sometimes, you might just have some that's just like, we're putting that exact thing in there. Those are kind of my most fun moments where, the guy who does the music for the show, Dave Kushner, amazing musician, used to be in Velvet Revolver with all of those guys. And, he told me this story one night of running out of a club, and he had drank too much, and he had his amp and he had his guitar, and he was running across Sunset, and he fell. So he was like in the air. He was in the air horizontally, and he was so drunk. His first thought was save the guitar and the amp.
Right.
So he sort of pulled them up like that, and he just landed face first and just busted all of his teeth. So. There's an episode.
Kevin does that.
He told me he runs out of the house and he falls down like that. And I forgot we put it in there. And he was doing the episode, and he saw Kevin do it, and he wrote "Be All Count." He goes, "Was that my story? Was that a little nod to it?" And he got such a kick out of it. It was really cool.
Yeah. And kind of even going along with that, like, you've kind of talked about in the past how you have these sort of childhood stories where something really traumatic happens, and then you sort of just go about your day sort of in a normal way. There's not really a resolution. How do you go about incorporating those moments while keeping continuity with the plot? Like, how does that work?
Well, that's sort of I feel like Mike Price is the captain of the ship, right? And he's the guy that, gets us to where we're going. And I feel like my job is I just sit there like the grumpy old guy in the corner, where I try to keep stuff tethered to the earth here, so it doesn't get too absurd. Like, there's a lot of absurd and crazy stuff that happens in the show, but like there has to be a through line of reality. And whenever you watch TV episodes, when kids lie or they do something, their parents find out, and then they learn that they shouldn't do that. And the reality is, in the real world, there's a whole bunch of stuff you did as a kid that was wrong and you lied about, and your parents don't find out about it because they're not the FBI, they're too busy. And so those are sort of like, they'll someone will pitch like, oh, and then Kevin says, fuck off. And I'm like, all right, if Kevin's going to say that, you can have him say that, but the dad can't just sit there and act like he didn't just curse at him.
Right.
Like he has to act like a dad. I just always, I feel like I'm doing that the most times. Like, okay, this, I never say, well, I guess sometimes I do, but I just try to like, all right, you can have the most absurd thing happen ever, but there has to be real reactions to it.
Right. And so, even though this show is obviously set in the 1970s, do you find like inspiration for plot from things you see in real life? Like, does stuff translate that you see just out in real life, or are you basically just kind of trying to recall how it was when you were growing up?
No, definitely recalling how it was when I was growing up, because the world, at least, yeah, it's so different. When I was Bill's age, it was like the late 70s, early 80s. So, I go back and I watch TV shows from back then, and I can't believe how archaic all the technology looks and stuff, what the cars look like and everything. So if I was to take today's themes, which I really hate when they do that, like you'll watch something, you'll watch something that took place in like the 1950s now, and the movie just came out now, and you'll see the influence of the Me Too movement in there. and it'll just be like, well, that takes me out of the movie, because I feel, and I just said, okay, was that an industry note, or did they get scared? Like, well, we can't show how guys, men and women really were back then without making some sort of social comment here. Like, I don't like that type of stuff, because I feel like they're smart enough. Like, I don't like being led around like, okay, this happened then, and you should think this about it. Like, it's like, do you think I'm so stupid that if I just saw that I would just think that was okay?
Right.
And that now you've taken me out of the movie, because, I'm just, whatever.
And, yeah, kind of even going a bit further with that, like, I know you've mentioned before that you were kind of surprised when in your notes they basically told you push it further. Like, have you ever gotten like pushback on an idea, or do they just kind of keep on letting you egg it on?
Gotten pushback more from like Gaumont on a couple of things. But we always, we don't always stick to our guns, but like, if you stick to your guns every time, then you're just an asshole. So sometimes like, all right, we'll fix this or something. But I don't know. I not really. Not enough where any sort of story comes to mind.
Okay. And obviously, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Netflix basically releases the whole season, and then they pick it up for another season if it gets enough traction, right?
That's how it works.
Yeah. So, do you feel any pressure from that sort of process, or are you kind of just like, well, we'll see what happens?
No, I don't. Not at all. Yeah, because it's just like, no matter, either way, it's a win. It's like either I get to continue doing this show with all the people that I love, or I actually get this amazing amount of free time back.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
So at this point in your career, sort of going more towards stand-up a little bit, what are the sources for your material? Like, what do you use kind of as inspiration now? Because obviously comedy's in a different time now where people sort of take comedians a bit seriously and tend to overbloat things sometimes. Does that affect the way you come up with material?
No, it just makes me go even harder. I guess that's how it affects it. Yeah, we're living in a truly, truly absurd time.
Why do you say that?
Just go on Twitter and just look how self-involved everybody is thinks they're a hero now. Everybody thinks every story out there is like the most important thing ever, and not only that, it's somehow about them. And then they just make these stupid statements where they don't even have to demonstrate that they're a good person, but they're just talking about what a great person they are in this roundabout way. And then they just get all these accolades like, that's so brave, that's so courageous of you to say that. It's just like I saw there was this hashtag, I swear to God, it was called Things I Don't Tolerate. All right? The things I don't, and there was literally adults tweeting on this. And then they just said the most obvious like stuff that no one would ever disagree with. It was just like, what don't you tolerate? It was just like bigotry, racism. My favorite one ever, mean people. An adult literally wrote mean people. And what I love about all of that is like the person didn't have to demonstrate. There was no video of them walking into the middle of a Klan meeting going, all right, everybody, knock it off. I don't tolerate this. All they had to do was write it. And then it's like they were on an award show, accepting like a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I just think like, there's so much stuff going on right now socially where it's just like what they're trying to achieve, no one would disagree with, but the way they're going about it.
Right.
Like my favorite thing right now is how you combat bullying and abuse of power is with bullying and abuse of power. It's like, yeah, it's
hypocritical in a way.
No, it's hilarious. The whole thing is hilarious. Like I said, it's like, it's all right. It's like the Red Scare meets like the Beehive.
Oh God.
Like if you make fun of Beyonce on like Twitter, like all of a sudden all this they attack you, try to find out where you live and stuff like that. Yeah, the whole like everything that's going on right now socially.
So you think like people basically don't back it up, like they just kind of talk a game and basically stick their chest out?
I literally saw a woman being consoled on there's a couple people that I follow sarcastically. I didn't literally follow them, but I check in with them because they're just so goddamn self-involved. It becomes a show in itself. I saw this woman out there. She's absolutely stunning, blonde-haired, blue-eyed white woman talking about how difficult it is. She compared her beauty when she was younger to that of a mermaid. I swear to God. And was then saying how difficult all this unwanted attention was that she got and blah, 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 and all of this type of stuff. And nothing really bad happened to her. It was just guys, staring at her with their jaws on the ground. So then she had to do all of this stuff to try and make herself look less pretty, just so she could exist the way the rest of us do. and then there's literally all these people out there, like literally consoling her. God, it's got to be so hard to be a drop-dead, gorgeous, statuesque, blue-eyed, blonde white woman in the United States of America. Like, you think black people have it bad. Try being a blue-eyed white woman. It's like, the whole thing is crazy.
Do you ever find yourself, like, getting into that a lot in your shows, like with hecklers? Like, do you get into it with people at shows about things like that? Or do you just not even bother?
No, because this is the thing. The elephant in the room is that 85% of the population right now is watching 15% of the population behave that way. And that 15% is moving the needle, and everybody else is kind of sitting back going like, this is kind of crazy, right? I mean, it's a little... They just destroyed that person, and I don't know if there was enough evidence to warrant that. I'm not saying that I disagree with what they're trying to achieve. Like, there's just all this whispering.
Right.
Yeah, it feels like when I was a kid when they used to talk about living behind the Iron Curtain, and they would and neighbors would tell on neighbors, and a van would just pull up and you just disappeared. It's like they're kind of doing the social media version of that.
Why?
It's I don't know. It is what it is. What are you gonna do?
Why do you think? I mean, why do you think like people act that way then? Like, what is your kind of thought behind that?
Oh well, this is the funny thing, because now that they've demonized like white males, you know, is what you're really seeing is their behavior is actually common. And what it is most people like human beings should not have unchecked power, because when you have unchecked power, like it's I don't know what it is, like most people cannot handle unchecked power. And what you're finding now is people who suffered from other people having unchecked power, now they have unchecked power. And you see within a year, like the behavior, it's spinning in this crazy direction where it's like you have to understand on some level that you are literally behaving the exact same way. Like, you know, you're talking about like in 1 year's time we've taken due process, you know, burden of proof and all of that, and just literally thrown it out the window. And just said, listen, if this person with this genitalia says something, you have to believe it. Period. Or if you don't, you're part of the problem. And it's just like straight across the board every time.
Right. You think it's kind of turned into like an innocent until proven guilty instead of the other way around, basically?
No, it's guilty until proven innocent. Yeah. So like that's one of those things where, you know, look, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like when like 3-4 people come forward, it's just like, you know, I mean, what are the odds that 3-4 people are all gonna just start lying? You know, like how much do they hate you that they like there's this big conspiracy just against you? So, I mean, that's like the hardest evidence that you can kind of like base things on. Like put it this way, the reason why I believe this Ford woman right now is because she's been telling this story. She told it in therapy. She's been telling it for years and all that. And it's just like, and I don't know if this is enough to convict somebody in a court of law. Because you know, I never sat. I sat as an alternate on a jury trial, but everybody showed up. So when it came time to do the verdict, I didn't have to, you know, cast a verdict. But I just think that you know, like that's like it's one of these things where every time I see one of these cases, I just think, you know, all right. What I always just look at it like, if this person did it, then I hope, you know, they get him. But if the person didn't do it, you know, I hope that they get, I would say acquitted, but there's really no trial. That's trial of public. I just don't want to see somebody who didn't do anything have their life burned down. And, you know, it's kind of like you're watching people, you know, playing with matches next to a gas can. I mean, it's just eventually you're gonna hurt the wrong person, and then it's you know, you're gonna hurt the whatever that you know, the movement, whatever you call it. Because I don't think why would anybody be against preventing what all these women are saying is happening? You know, but
yeah, people
just because there's been bad guys out there doing things doesn't mean that you all of a sudden don't have to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. Now you can't throw that, because you know that Kavanaugh guy, right? You look at him and it's just like, he's not a television personality or whatever, and he is like 2 feet from the brass ring, and he's getting his shorts yanked down here, and he looks like, the way he's behaving is the way I behaved when my roof collapsed and I realized that my insurance company wasn't going to cover it. You know? So he's in a very high emotional state. So he's getting tried, a lot of it, by the way he came off. Like when Nixon lost to Kennedy on TV but won on the radio. So, but having said that, I still, you know, And I'm sitting there literally telling, I shouldn't be saying this to you because I barely watched it. Just from what I read and what I saw, I'm now casting my vote. So I'm like literally guilty of it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. People tend to get sort of crucified in the court of public opinion a lot of times before the facts kind of come out. I definitely see what you're saying. And with that said, like, do you find stuff like that making its way into comedy as far as people not wanting to broach subjects? I know you aren't afraid of addressing these kind of subjects head on and kind of just going at it.
I think it's happening more with like Louis. Louis for some reason is like the he represents something. You know what I mean? So it's like he's gone up at the Cellar twice, and I wasn't there, but the comics that were there were like, "No, man, everybody clapped," and they're not reporting that in the papers. They're talking, saying people were offended, people ran out, he was heckled. Right. This joke was met with an uncomfortable response, and it's like, I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, it's just like that. Every night I go on stage, one of my jokes is met with an uncomfortable response, and I feel like. There's this, it's just going to this point where people are willing to just, they're not willing to, they're not going about this thing the right way. Like if you're a reporter and you go down there and people cheer, you're supposed to say that they cheered, aren't you? I mean, and if you're saying that they didn't, like you're letting your own personal opinion get in there, which is fine, but say that it's your personal opinion, and that you're upset that people are applauding, but you're not supposed to come out of there when people applauded and say that they didn't applaud. Right.
So do you find now, like, I mean, obviously you're established, but do you find that it's harder for comics to sort of come...
Dude, nobody is established now. Because anybody can say anything about you, and then it's taken as law, and then it's up to you to prove that it's not guilty until proven innocent. I mean, it's not innocent until proven guilty. It's guilty until proven innocent. So,
you can go down at any time, basically, just because of what people say.
Yeah, literally, someone could read this and get mad at me, and then say that I did something, and everyone's going to be like, "Believe women," and then I'm fucked. I shouldn't be talking about this, But feel like I really respect, I've learned a tremendous amount about stuff that I almost feel like I kind of inherently knew but never really thought about. Sometimes when you kind of know something, but until you talk about it out loud, like listening to some of these stories and to take advantage of a situation where you are in power and to really kind of do anything to make people go, fetch your coffee when that's not part of their job description. They're supposed to be, helping you with this script or whatever the hell it is, all the way to being this creep sexually, is something that is, these stories are they're heartbreaking to hear and everything like that. But, having said all of that, there's, like I said, there's, I really believe when you're dealing with ending somebody's career, that you really have to take the time to make sure that you're getting the right person. And for some reason, that thought is met with aggression, which that is what's scary, because that's already happened a couple of times. It actually happened to a friend of mine where there was an investigation. After they took everything away from him, there was an investigation, and they realized there was nothing there. And then this person who was found innocent now has to plot their return. And then they also have that markup against their name, which is why I've never understood why. It's I understand you don't say the victim's name, but you shouldn't say the accused name either until they're convicted, right? See. I would think, but all of that stuff, if I said that, I'm saying it to you, but you know what I mean? If you say that in front of a crowd, like, people are afraid to clap, and you'll actually get hisses from some people, and you're like, it's like, do you understand? You're booing due process. Yeah. It's what prevents me from saying, hey, you're a murderer, and then everybody just,
going along with
it. Nails you to a cross. Yeah, you can't have. You have. I mean, the judicial system gets it wrong. I mean, even that system, which is the best system we have, gets it wrong. And now you're going to take that and throw that out the fucking window and leave it to social media? Social fucking media. All right. Anyways, I probably said way too much here.
And just one of the last few questions. So with all that sort of said, at the end of the day, does the heightened sense of everything basically just give you more material? Or do you try to? Yeah, it does. And I think that the way to go about it is, but you have to do it in an empathetic way. You can't go about it and be just like, what's up with these feminist psychos? Right. Which is, you see that, and it's just like, you just destroyed any point that you're going to make here. Yeah. Because what you should, you got to do it in a funnier way. Like I swear to God, like, now if I meet. When I go go into a comedy club, there's like people that I've known for years, women that I've known for years, and they come up, hey, how you doing? And they go in for the hug, and I get nervous. I mean, that's bad. Like what the paranoia of it is that bad. Yeah. It shouldn't be that bad, but like somebody needs to sort of break the tension so this movement can continue. Because I think for it to continue, you got to have it in a place where people who haven't done anything are comfortable. Mm-hmm. Because you can't sit there and even scare the innocent. Because if you scare the innocent, eventually there will be like a backlash. Mm-hmm. Where it's like, why am I waking up in a fucking cold sweat? Mm-hmm. It's like, because there's now a system in place where anybody can just fucking say anything. Right. And then you get mad. Like, this is fucking bullshit. Mm-hmm. The next thing you know, you look like me when my fucking roof collapsed. And so, with that said, going a little bit back to the show, you're able to get away with a little bit more because it's set in the 1970s. Like, there are instances even, like, where I've talked to friends who have watched the show, whatever, and the way Frank talks to Sue sometimes, for example, like, and then the way Sue is treated in the workplace, like, things like that. Do you get, like, negative feedback from people from that, or? No, I'm not getting away with showing how things were. Right. And we're just making fun of how things were. Mm-hmm. So, it's not like, getting away with, like, when somebody says you're getting away with something implies that you mean it in a malicious way, and people were basically, I guess, too dumb to figure it out. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we're not getting away with anything because none of it is coming from a malicious place. Right. But it's one of those things there, though. It's the way you, like, execute it. Like, if you're just going to show how things were in a certain area, it has to still be funny. Mm-hmm. But then there's sometimes where you're just sort of making a point, and then it doesn't have to be funny. It's actually hurtful and painful for the character. Mm-hmm. But, as long as the tone is right, the music fits it and everything, you see that, it's not, and you're not advocating it. You're just kind of like showing stuff. Like when Sue got, like, her invention stolen from her. I mean, that mm-hmm. still happens. Yeah. Happens today. Happens all the time. Mm-hmm. So anyways. Realistic. Yeah. Okay. All right. Is there anything I didn't ask about the show or your upcoming shows that you'd want to mention at all?